going to have Las Vegas Route 91 Harvest Festival shootings discussion part 4 now. And so I had a comment in discussion part 3 that I'd like to share from a witness. I was there. The first volley sounded far away. The second volley and the ones following sounded much closer. The rifle report was louder, but the gunfire wasn't overlapping. I never saw muzzle flashes. I thought I did, but it turned out to be the strobe light that everyone saw. I did not see any muzzle flashes from 32-135 or 32-134. I just want to mention that he capitalizes and emphasizes that point. I would not be able to see the flashes if they were on that octagon area that easily had access to the parking garage. I'm sure some of the shots came from up high, but only during the beginning of the shooting. Now, just to place a little bit of context here, this comment comes in this video here where we feature how they did it and got away on the Hank Sullivan YouTube channel. I provided a link for that. And so, again, he says he would not have been able to see the flashes if they were on that octagon area. He continues. He says, I think some of the shooting came from up high, but not much. I couldn't see any flashes. I'm an experienced shooter. I was looking for the muzzle flashes. So he's specifically looking for them, and he can't find them. He says it sounded like a full auto 7.62 machine gun, not a bump stock. That was what I heard, especially when I made it outside of the venue. What an escape plan they had. The gunfire after the initial shots were basically cover fire, so the shooter on the 32nd floor could get away. So this is pretty interesting information. I am going to call this a credible witness, and it's interesting because he specifically mentions that they would have, he highlights the points that Hank Sullivan makes, and he basically, with his witness testimony, is supporting this video by Hank Sullivan. So I'm just going to re-emphasize this video, this right here. And Hank Sullivan, this is not a theory. Hank Sullivan uses video and audio, particularly the cab driver video that has a lot of audio as well, and he uses that as evidence for this. I'm not going to read through all of these. There's a lot of good ones. Rocket Man made some good comments. Margaret Lee asks, did anyone ever see or find spent casings? Question mark. The ones allegedly in 32-135 are most likely placed for photos after window found unbroken. And I know exactly what Margaret Lee Reed is talking about. You guys saw in the Joshua Bitsko BWC camera that when they first got in that room, those windows were not broken. In fact, they talk about it among themselves. We do see that in the video, and then later on we know that they were broken. So you're right on, Margaret Lee Reed. And coming up next, we're going to visit the Nothing If Not Intense channel, and we're going to talk a little more about these the ammunition and stuff like that, and the Hague case.
The man who illegally sold ammunition to the 1 October gunman has pleaded guilty. Douglas Hague was in federal court this morning to face a federal judge and enter the change of plea. Orko Manna is live outside the courthouse with the story. Orko, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, John. Well, it's important to note that Douglas Haig is not accused of a direct role in the 1 October shooting, but here in federal court today, he pleaded guilty to 1 count of manufacturing ammunition without a license. Now, cameras are not allowed in federal court, but I was able to sit in on the plea hearing. According to the judge, the plea agreement states that Haig used his business, Specialized Military Ammunition, which is based at his Arizona residence, to illegally sell ammunition here in Nevada. A license is required to do that, but from July 2016 to mid-October 2017, Haig sold ammunition without a license. The charge is that he did so willfully and with the knowledge that he did need a license. His attorney tells us Haig never intended for anything bad to happen.
Doug had no indication whatsoever about Stephen Paddock's plans. Doug was absolutely devastated when he learned of the tragedy on October 1st, 2017. He was particularly devastated to learn he had previously sold ammunition to Stephen Paddock.
I tried asking why Haig decided to change his plea, but the attorney would not answer my questions. Haig could
face up to 5 years in prison. Was going to be the continuation of that sentence. We'll just finish that up in just a moment. Thank you, Nothing If Not Intense, for that video and for keeping up on this, as a lot of people stopped covering it. Phil Ramos, retired LVMPD homicide detective, made the following public statement, quote, "For that name to have popped up, there's got to be more to it than just ammunition," unquote. Haig claims innocence, maintaining he only pled guilty to avoid an unfair trial. Investigators said Haig had no connection to the suspect, even after Haig admitted to spending time with the suspect at 2 gun shows in person. Investigators allegedly found ammo bearing his tool marks and a package bearing Haig's name as the return address in the suspect's Mandalay Bay suite. Haig says they're setting him up and using him. Haig was charged with illegally manufacturing and selling without a license. Haig doesn't deny that he was reloading ammo and selling, but he claims he never sold the reloaded ammo to customers. Haig never indicated reloaded ammo was stolen, as far as I have seen. However, they haven't really shown him saying much, so he might have indicated it was stolen. We don't know. And he maintains there's no way his reloaded ammo was found in that suite, which would suggest that he isn't reporting that it was stolen. If he was reporting that it was stolen, on the one hand, he wouldn't be saying on the other hand that there's no way that his reloaded ammo was found in that suite. So he's saying that they're lying. The authorities had a choice: admit that at least one shooter escaped, which would be alarming to the Vegas tourist community, or minimize the event at the request of the casinos. The problem with the latter is it undermines the actual investigation, an investigation where the public could provide tips like they do, for example, on America's Most Wanted.
Face up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. Haig's sentencing is scheduled for February 19th. Reporting live from downtown Las Vegas, Orko Manna, 8 News Now.
This is kind of interesting. The name of his company is Military Ammunition. He walks away carrying a military bag, and it even has where the patch goes, the fuzzy area where you stick the patch. It even has what appears to either be a patch or a sleeve where that you would hold a credential in. Although it looks more like a patch because you can see the thick black outline, and it kind of looks like could be an army style patch. Okay, so we're going to go over the control room footage. They're calling it the surveillance room footage, but it's technically called the security control room. It's where security has all their monitors and stuff, and it's where their main operations take place and where their equipment is located and stuff. The supervisors could have a different office, but their monitors and all that and their main functions will take place in the control room. So, and then of course, if there was an emergency or something, and the supervisor, for example, had an office in a different location, they would come in direct from the control room rather than have the people abandon the control room and the monitors and go to their office. So the control room is where everything happens. It's very key. It's very important. We're going to pay close attention to it. I'm going to point out what I noticed in this footage, and I'll play it back for you. I'm also going to leave a link in the description for the original video on the Las Vegas Shooting Archive channel, so you can watch it for yourself if you'd like. Some of this stuff is kind of troubling. Shortly after 48 seconds, heard with headphones. Copy. The one that's with the 57 is away and I'll be coming down. Possible another translation. Copy. The woman that's with the 57 is away and I'll be coming down. Copy. He's with me now. Where's he at now? Question mark. And in this situation, the 57 would be the shooter. So just to translate one more time. Copy. The one that's with the shooter is away and I'll be coming down now. Copy. He's with me now. Where's he at now? Question mark. So are they? Do they have a shooter in custody, or are they escorting the guy around, sneaking him around? This is just bizarre.
Copy. I'm about 5 seconds away and I'll be coming down. Copy. He's with me now.
Where is he at now?
It's just me. I was trying to get to the crystal room, but they called it off.
Okay. They say security say they have possible 3 shooters on the 32nd floor.
They're all hiding and ducking and running right now.
Where at?
Inside Strip Steak Restaurant.
Strip steak restaurant. Because
And you can hear they're also getting reports that in Strip's steakhouse or whatever, shooting as well. So, first of all, a little bit of context. So this would be way before the breach. Basically, what you just heard was a report of 3 shooters on the 32nd floor, and then a female security officer at the monitor indicated that they originally responded to the 36th floor. So at this point, folks, they're already saying that they've responded, all right, and that they responded to the 36th floor. That's important to remember.
there's an active shooter, possibly not confirmed. Test related of 3 shooters so far. Information is not verified though. Supposedly got 3 shooters over on 32nd floor, multiple casualties, possibly one officer shot in the head. We're still verifying. It's kind of chaotic right now.
So he just said possibly one officer shot in the head. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about them taking suspects into custody and then nobody ever talking about it, and it just disappearing. The information disappears, nobody talks about it, and then there's never any backstory. But shortly after 30:15, we start hearing them talk about detaining a suspect on or around the 13th floor. And in the helicopter IR cam footage, we see them taking 3 more into custody at gunpoint. And you can see that video. I've got 2 of the helicopter IR camera videos if you want to check it out.
Hey, Morris said they have someone in handcuffs. By the 13th floor. That Metro has somebody in handcuffs. By the 13th floor. Mandalay Bay.
The one detained at
Yeah, let me double check.
13th floor. We don't know if it's
I just want to confirm that we have one.
They have somebody in handcuffs.
but we don't know if
Mandalay Bay.
we don't know if the obstruction or the main suspect, right?
Yeah, we don't know.
Okay, for anyone that followed the Laura Loomer interview of the female Michaela, who was in fear of her life regarding her knowledge of some of the things involved in the shootings, shortly after 13:02, quote, "You need to stay away from the hallway elevator. We're evacuating Michaela," unquote. So Michaela, according to the official narrative, doesn't exist and has nothing to do with this. And for anyone that doesn't know about the Laura Loomer interview, Laura Loomer interviewed a Michaela who claimed Paddock was a friend who confided in her that he was part of something to do with intelligence or the government. They hacked into his brain with MK Ultra style mind control and could take control of him.
Well, if you can stay away from the hallway, that would be perfect. We're evacuating the phone. Is that somebody's cold call?
Can't get any more disturbing than this. Shortly after 10:48 can be heard with headphones. Phone ringing. Security, how can I help you? Then you hear gunshots in the phone call, somebody trying to scream basically for help, and then the security hangs up on them. Let's take a watch.
Yeah. That's why I heard trying to call back. I heard trying to call back.
Security, Lily, how can I help you?
This is a real big smack in the face of the official narrative. Shortly after 23:15, there's a radio transmission that indicates that they searched 32-135 prior to the unnecessary fake breaches and didn't even find a suspect. Scott Binsack, rest in peace, provided us with some very valuable information, and I'm not going to comment on all of his information or say that I agree with all of his information, so I just want to touch on a couple of things briefly. The Mandalay Bay had the best security in the country. During this shooting, they had the SPFPA had the security contract for Mandalay Bay. Homeland Security is a branch of the SPFPA, and I'm not going to get too much more into that right now. I covered a little more of that in a previous video, but this was just ridiculous. The official narrative is just ridiculous in light of reality, and for example, reality being that they had the best security you could possibly have, and this horrible thing happened. And John Lear provided a lot of good information about some of these things. John Lear would definitely seems like some of the information he's provided would be very closely in sync with information provided by Scott Binsack, particularly this information here. Here you have James Murin. Michael Chertoff is who we're going to talk about tonight. We're not going to be talking about these other people, but we will get into Michael Chertoff. Heather Murin. I don't know this military gentleman. Everyone knows George Soros, and he's kind of earned a bad reputation. And up top in the right corner, we have the FBI gentleman. Scott Binsack, rest in peace, gave us information about a conspiracy with Michael Chertoff involving scanners that are basically harmful. Physically, they're harmful, and they would never be approved for safety purposes. So they're sitting in a warehouse, basically, is my understanding, and they were a big waste of money, and they're also not going to work for this larger plan to kind of enforce sort of a police state, take away everyone's guns, and take away people's freedoms, if I'm understanding all this correctly. And one of the reasons why they're having these shootings and stuff, not only to do away with the Second Amendment, which is not easy to do, and for gun control, but also so that at some point they could get these scanners put in place at all major places, arenas, schools, airports, just and stuff like that, where the harmful health effect will be overlooked. So we're seeing a pattern, and we're seeing the same people. We're seeing the same people that were involved in 9/11 and stuff like that, and involved in creating Homeland Security, involved here as well. And those organizations and those policies that came out of 9/11 are kind of what have culminated into sort of what we're seeing surrounding the Vegas shootings. I'm just going to read this real quick. The truth will prevail, but only if we demand it from Congress. 9/11 inside job and neocons hack 2004. This goes beyond politics. This goes beyond Democrat or Republican. There's good and bad in both parties. This boils down to being a human and being an American. These attacks, these events, and these conspiracies are a twofold attack. They're an attack on humans and being a human, and they're also an attack on, and that involves, your rights and stuff, freedom and stuff like that. So it's an attack on all of that, and it's also an attack on being an American, on our country was founded with a constitution, and our founding fathers gave us basic, principles and guidelines and stuff that we're not going to do away with. We're not going to do away with them. And so these things that are happening, and there's a lot of people who are in the deep state and stuff like that who are traitors to this country, and they go a step further, and they've betrayed humanity as well. Michael Chertoff, Homeland nominee, aided a 9/11 terrorist. As incredible as this news may seem, it has now been revealed that the nominee of President Bush for the new Secretary of Homeland Security, Michael Chertoff, has ties with the man suspected of financing the 9/11 attacks, Dr. Maggie El-Amir. There is also convincing evidence that Chertoff, as head of the criminal division of the U.S. Justice Department, shielded his financier of 9/11 from prosecution in a terrorist case. The Record newspaper of Bergen County, New Jersey, on June 20th, 2000, shows that Chertoff defended Maggie El-Amir, who was sued by the state of New Jersey for $16.7 million in loss. Who is El-Amir? Maggie, Chertoff's important client. On the NBC program Dateline on August 2nd, 2002, Representative Gilman, Republican, New York, of the House International Relations Committee, was quoted as saying in 1998 that Maggie El-Amir had financial ties with Osama bin Laden for years. In fact, El-Amir even had strong connections with the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993. Maggie El-Amir was one of the most important financial supporters of the Al-Salam Mosque. The Al-Salam Mosque was where Omar Abdel Rahman preached, the Muslim extremist who was later arrested for his role in 1993 World Trade Center bombing. Former New Jersey police officer Alan Duncan said that the Jersey City area, and particularly Al-Salam Mosque, were allowed to continue as a major hub of terrorist activity in the United States. Allowed to continue, he says. During this period, 1990 to 1994, Chertoff was the U.S. Attorney for this area, the District of New Jersey. Amazingly, even after this period, El-Amir later became one of Chertoff's most important clients. In 1999, Maggie El-Amir and his brother Mohammed were named suspects in Operation Diamondback, which was an FBI ATF undercover infiltration of Pakistani arms dealers who sought to arm Osama bin Laden with conventional and nuclear weapons. According to the testimony of Officer Duncan and taped transcripts, the FBI informant Randy Glass El-Amir was a key player in this operation. According to Dateline, NBC Mohammed El-Amir tried to purchase small arms and ammunition in a recorded telephone conversation with Glass. Dateline confirmed that El-Amir and his corporation had paid at least $5,000 to Egyptian arms dealer Daya Motion. Motion was sentenced to 30 months for his involvement in Operation Diamondback. Officer Alan Duncan, who was hired as an investigator by families of the September 11th attacks, said that the reason El-Amir was never convicted was because he was never charged with a crime. When Operation Diamondback culminated in arrests in the summer of 2001, Michael Chertoff had become the Assistant Attorney General in charge of the Criminal Division of the U.S. Justice Department, and Operation Diamondback was under his authority. Chertoff blocked the indictment of his former client, Maggie El-Amir. Chertoff has also blocked the indictment of other Israeli partisans like himself with ties to 9/11. In a 4-part investigative report on the Brit Hume Fox News program in December 2001, it was revealed a huge Israeli Mossad spy team of at least 100 members had been arrested by the FBI. The Fox News report revealed that the Israeli spy ring had penetrated FBI, CIA, DEA, U.S. attorneys' offices, federal judges, even military bases. In addition, the Mossad, through an Israeli company, was and is able to monitor all phone calls made in the U.S., including those of law enforcement agencies. It is known that Israeli drug kingpins in the U.S. escaped prosecution because of this penetration. It also revealed that Mossad agents had closely shadowed the 9/11 hijackers for months before 9/11. They repeatedly failed lie detector tests. Considering their close monitoring of the hijackers for months, the FBI agents are quoted as saying, quote, "How could they not have known," unquote, the details of the 9/11 attacks? The report suggests that the Israeli Mossad knew the details of the attacks in advance but did not provide the information to the U.S. In one of its most revealing moments, the Fox News report quotes an unnamed FBI source saying that for an agent to expose Israeli spying is career suicide. Michael Chertoff freed over 100 members of a huge Israeli spy ring apprehended in the wake of 9/11, including the Israeli agents who had tapped telephones and shadowed 9/11 terrorist leader Mohammed Atta and many of his hijacker team for weeks before the attack. Chertoff also freed 5 Mossad agents who had been arrested and detained for months by the FBI on the day of the 9/11 attacks. They had been caught in New Jersey filming and sharing the 9/11 attacks on the World Trade Center. Interestingly enough, they were apprehended with large sums of cash, false passports, and box cutters, the same devices used in the hijackings. The FBI also found self-taken photos of very happy Mossad agents grinning and flicking their lighters with the World Trade Center burning in the background. Chertoff also allowed all of the apprehended Israeli spies to return to Israel out of the reach of American investigators. So it's coming obvious from this article that Chertoff is an Mossad sort of puppet. Israeli and the Jewish supremacists could not afford these revelations of Israel's spying and treachery. They had to put one of their own in position to protect their interests. They found him in Michael Chertoff. Michael Chertoff is the son of a rabbi and a longtime radical Zionist and Jewish supremacist. After the first apprehensions of Israel over that of the United States. I'm going to read that again. After the first apprehensions of Israel over that of the United States. Doesn't seem like a complete sentence. 2 of them, Wolfowitz and Pearl, were the chief architects of the Iraq War, a war good for Israel, but an unmitigated disaster for the people of the United States. The Zionist network has many avenues by which they can get almost any appointment in government they want. They put him in a position to quash this story of Israeli treachery, and he in fact did so. After freeing the Israeli spies involved in 9/11 and other espionage activities, and despite having never served in the judiciary, Chertoff was given the high position of a federal judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals, whose jurisdiction includes Delaware, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the Virgin Islands. After 19 months as a judge, President Bush nominated Chertoff to the position of Secretary of Homeland Security. Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, a government advocacy watchdog agency, has noticed Chertoff's advancement from Assistant Attorney General of the Department of Justice to Secretary of Homeland Security nominee over the past 4 years. This is really troubling. So Bush, who you would think would be smart, you know, his father was a previous president, and after he got out of the Navy or whatever, you know, and they're supposedly, you know, smart people. Was he in Skull and Bones? You know? Well, what's he do? He's going to give the job for Homeland Security in charge of our country, the security of our country, to a traitor. Give me a break. It's an exceptional rise to power, said Fitton. Indeed, Chertoff's rapid rise was exceptional, but one completely understandable with the risks of exposure presented in the Israeli spy ring and involvement in 9/11. Their man had to be put in very quickly. Michael Chertoff could not afford the prosecution of Maggie El-Amir because it would have revealed his own close connection to this bin Laden supporter who was one of the financiers of the 9/11 attacks. In 2002, I was speaking all over America and world exposing the Israeli connections to 9/11 and the over 140 members of the Israeli spy ring that was then held in FBI custody. Zionists in the U.S. State Department attempted to prevent my appearance on a primetime program broadcast over the worldwide Al Jazeera network. Parentheses, Newsweek, Periscope. They failed, and the program aired to millions around the world and received a tremendous response. I was offered hundreds of invitations to speak on the matter before influential organizations, media, and groups all over the world. Within 60 days of my appearance on Al Jazeera, Mr. Chertoff, as head of the Criminal Division of the U.S. Justice Department, authorized prosecution against me on tax and financial matters. This is the same Michael Chertoff who freed the same Israeli spy ring that I helped to expose. And now it turns out that Chertoff himself has aided one of the financiers of bin Laden and the 9/11 attack. It is also clear that he has obstructed justice in preventing this terrorist's prosecution. And now our Jewish neocon denominated government seeks to make a man who aided one of the 9/11 terrorists as head of Homeland Security. Under control of the Jewish supremacists, our nation's government has gone insane. Sincerely, David Duke. I want to acknowledge that some of my wording and excerpts came from a superb article, Security Risk, in the University Star newspaper of Texas State University. They are credited with the flowchart of the timeline showing Chertoff's involvement with the terror figure and his subsequent obstruction of justice. Note, I believe that this story is one of the most shocking and important ever published on davidduke.com/imagine the nominee for head of Homeland Security actually aided one of the men behind the 9/11 attacks. It's almost too shocking to be true. So we've got some big problems, folks, right now in this country. And what we need is the right people in positions of leadership.